The future of the shortstop position for the Atlanta Braves is really interesting. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today, your daily source for news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby, award-winning baseball writer and podcaster. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can also find all of my written work over at BravesToday.com, your daily Atlanta Braves newsletter, as Braves Today is both a podcast and a newsletter. We're proudly part of the Believe Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app or go to FanDuel.com to get started. A little bit later in the show, I want to talk to those of you who are in the hobby. We have a guest coming on to talk about the Bowman drop for next week on Wednesday, what Braves players are in there, what Braves card values are doing, who's overpriced, who's underpriced, some of that stuff. But before we do that, Baseball America put out their Braves top 30 this week, as well as some of their ancillary articles, sleeper prospects, breakout prospects, all that kind of stuff. And there's some really interesting guys in here and some interesting placements of some of these players. And we're going to get to the pitchers, I think, in segment 2. But I want to start with the shortstops and the position players in general, because I've talked on this show a lot about how Atlanta doesn't have enough position players in the farm system because they've always drafted pitchers first and filled in day 3, or the back half of the draft, it's now only 2 days, with position players. And last summer was completely opposite, right? They took a bunch of position players early, specifically shortstops, and then backfilled with pitching on day 3. And it's just a little bit opposite of what they've always done. Some of the commonalities were there, right? They still saved some money early to underslot a prep talent in, round 4 or 5 or so. In this case, it was Briggs McKenzie. But it's led you to a really interesting kind of situation when you try to figure out what's going to happen at shortstop and how everything's going to go. Because looking at the top prospects, the guy that we're most excited about, and when I say top prospects, I'm using the Baseball America prospect reports here. That is behind a paywall, so I'm not going to read the report verbatim or anything, but when I refer to a guy as number 12 or 3 or whatever, I'm talking about on the Baseball America ranking. They're considered kind of the gold standard across Major League Baseball, and their top 100 list is actually one of the 3 rankings that factors into the prospect promotion incentive program. That's how much they're respected in the industry. It's like MLB's official list, it's this one, and then it's ESPN's list, who is run by a former Major League Baseball team employee. Actually, we used to work for the Braves. So when you're looking at shortstop for the Braves, I think the guys that we talked the most about, I touched on this a little bit in the mailbag earlier in the week. John Heel, I have been saying that wrong. I've been saying Gill, and it is pronounced Heel, so that's on me. John Heel comes in at number 12 on the list. I talked about him on Monday as a situation where he is more ceiling than floor, right? International free agent. He debuted in 2023 at age 17 in the Dominican Summer League, hit 285. And this most recent season hit 258 with a 731 OPS in Single-A Augusta. He did get a week in Double-A Columbus to end the season, went 4 for 23, but he comes in at number 12 on Baseball America's list. And if you look at the short or the middle infield guys, he's ranked second of the group of 4. And by the group of 4, I mean Cody Miller, who was taken in the draft last year, Tate Southesine, the first-round pick, and Alex Lodis, the second-round pick. John Heel is second among the group of 4, but he's at number 12. And they point out that his upside, he's kind of capped as far as his upside in their mind because of his power. And this is something back when I did the prospect podcast, Locked On MLB Prospects, we won awards for that. It was a really good show. Did it for a couple years. One of the things I used to say a ton is your power tool's only as good as your hit tool. And for John Heel, his contact ability is very good. He understands the strike zone really well. He doesn't expand a ton. He has really good plate skills, really good contact skills. They said he had some of the best contact and plate skills in the entire organization, in the minors, right? Like, he's probably not better than Ronald Acuna Jr., but his issue was his exit velocities weren't amazing. They were, respectable is what they called it, but he's hitting the ball on the ground a lot. And the 90th percentile exit velocity, which is really the one you want to look at, right? You don't want to look at the max because one crazy thing could skew that. The EV90 is what we call it, is what the prospect apparatus calls it. And it is the average, it is at the 90th percentile of your batted balls, the exit velocity there. And it's the most proven translation into power over max exit velocity or average exit velocity. Your EV90, your 90th percentile exit velocity. MLB average is around 103. And the thing with John Heel is it's not really grown year over year that much. He's not made significant growth to it. He does have some development left. He's listed at 6'1", 175 on both Baseball Reference and Baseball America. They do now, as I've been told, weigh and measure these guys in spring training because it's used to calibrate any sort of automated balls and strike system that they may face. The height is. So they do weigh them and everything. He's a really good runner. He should steal lots of bags. He stole 50 bags in Augusta last year in 64 attempts. He was caught 14 times. A little bit inefficient, right? You want that to be a little better. And Baseball America points that out. Like, he has to refine his base running instincts and his efficiency. So the observation that we had from the raw numbers is backed up by their scouting report. So this is something where, defensively, they think he's going to be good enough to play shortstop and stay at shortstop. There's potential here, but his most likely outcome, assuming he makes the majors, is, kind of a gap hitter, hitting doubles and things like that, and he might, pop off for 10 homers a season or something like that is kind of what their assumption is, which is fine. It's not the type of ceiling that you would love, but he's just now 19 years old. He has physical development left. So there is that potential to grow. The flip side here is, all right, let me back up. Right behind him in the rankings is Tate Southesine. He's the first round pick from last year and 5'11", 170. And he's already kind of impressing with how hard he hits the ball. He has those exemplary exit velocities. But when he went to Augusta, and granted it was a small sample, something like 15 games, he only hit 219. And they said that he was just really aggressive at the plate. He was swinging a lot. He was swinging and missing a lot, and he was chasing a lot. I'm honestly not worried about 15 games. I said this about Alex Lodis on Monday. I'm not worried about 15 games. It's an incredibly small sample size. These guys have kind of been laying off a little bit. He's the kind of guy that he has the potential. He has the athleticism. He could play shortstop. He could play second base. He could play center field. With his arm, he could probably play third. And this is something where he is the highest ceiling in the system of any of these position players, any of these shortstops. But he's also the farthest away because he has a grand total of 15 official games in affiliated ball. Alex Lodis comes in at number 6 on the rankings. He's the floor play. I talked about this a little bit on Monday, but again, not great stats from when he debuted. Some of that small sample size. I don't really care, right? But pretty decent defender, plus arm. he can play the position really well. And there's things in his offensive profile that give you some, he can pull the ball, get to some power. Exit velocity is better than Ozzy, but that kind of same focus on pulling the ball in the air to get to power. They do think they can tweak his mechanics a little bit to get him a little more consistent. The guy I don't think we're talking enough about, and I don't remember if I mentioned him on Monday or not, is Cody Miller. Number 19 on Baseball America's list, but he's another guy that didn't hit for a ton of power in college until his draft year. He popped 18 home runs, but it's a lot of pulling the ball in the air, which perfectly fine. If you're a pulled ball merchant, a home run's a home run. It doesn't matter how you hit it, right? Really good runner. In college, he had a 92% contact rate in the zone. So the hit tool is there. And if he can show that the power is something that translates from a metal bat to a wood bat, he's the guy that could surprise us and be the first one up. Lodis is the floor. South Assine's the ceiling. Heel is the guy that is right below South Assine, has the room to grow. Miller's the wild card to me. But this is probably the most interesting group of middle infield prospects the Braves have had since they technically had Ozzy Albies and Dansby Swanson in the minors together. And remember, they had Dansby because they traded for him after he was drafted number 1 overall. So this is the most intriguing set of shortstop prospects that the organization's had in a long time. And I'm really excited to watch Augusta, to watch Rome, and see what these guys do in the minors and where you play them every day. Again, South Assine can play short, he can play second, he can play center. Miller's played short, second, and third. Lodis is probably going to be at shortstop, but if he's in high A with Heel, do you rotate them through between second base and shortstop? What do you do with them? Super intrigued to watch this. In just a minute, let's talk about some of the pitchers. Because, actually, let's stay on the position players. There's a couple position players that I think we're sleeping on a little bit, and one guy that I need to admit I've not talked enough about. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. They now have the odds for division winners up. They have the Phillies winning the division still, even though, if you think about it, the Phillies have the worst outfield in the division. Like, they're going to break out prospect Justin Crawford. They're going to combine him with hope they can rehab an Adolis Garcia. And then who's their third guy? Brandon Marsh. He's fine. It's probably the worst outfield in the division, and yet they are the favorites because they have Turner and Harper and Schwarber back. They have the rotation, although we don't know what Zach Wheeler's going to do. And then it's Braves and Mets. Braves plus 190, Mets plus 195. So we'll see what happens. But either way, kind of a 3-team race. Marlins are plus 3,000. Nationals are plus 12,500. So there's a fun bet for you if you want to earn a lot of money on the most surprising division win outside of maybe Colorado coming back to win the division next year. If you're ready to get started, go to FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsey Crosby. Reminder, segment 3, we have a guest coming on. We're going to talk about the new Bowman draft release that comes out next Wednesday. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, I want to talk some more about some of these position players, because I've been really down on the position player talent in the system, but specifically the outfield, right? Isaiah Drake had a terrible debut. He rebounded somewhat in his second year, but he's still, he's on here at number 25. He's the number 25 prospect on Baseball America's list. He's entering his age 20 season. He cut his strikeout rate significantly, especially against fastballs. He went from 35% strikeout rate overall his first year to 21% last year. He got much better. He also 78% stolen base rate, has all the athleticism and everything to steal a bunch of bags, play good defense, but just did much better contact-wise. And so elevate the ball a little more, and you have a guy who looks like he could actually, be a pretty decent outfielder. But that's not the guys to be excited about. Baseball America has an outfielder in the top 10, and then their sleeper MLB prospect for the Atlanta Braves is number 15, Connor Essenberg. Braves got him in the 5th round. They paid him $1.2 million to sign in the 5th round. So way over slot there. 6'2", 200. He's a right-handed hitter. He's a lefty thrower. Not a common combination there. He did not play an official game last year. He did not get into any games in single A or anything like that. Rookie ball is done right after the draft. They changed the schedule so that they're not playing in Florida and Arizona in July and August. So they wrap up right around like early July, around time for the draft. But he went to what they called the Bridge League, which was action we're doing at the like we're playing games at the complex. They're just not official games. We're playing against ourselves, or another team will bus in and we'll play them, but it's not an official game. There's no cameras there. They're not keeping, or there's not MLB.com stats and all of that. But apparently he had some really exciting plays there, hitting the ball really hard, really good bat speed. And the question is his hit tool. We don't have the stats on those games. We don't know how he did against fastballs, how he did against their stuff. But they're saying that, and this is, both scouting reports I've read, Baseball America, all that stuff, that fantastic bat speed, fantastic power. So massive power. We just have to see what he's going to be able to do as a hitter, right? Again, your power tool's only as good as your hit tool. And it's something where he was a two-way player in high school. Atlanta took him as just a hitter. And the Braves have done this in the past. They've taken two-way guys and kind of bucked some of the expectations by what they did with them, right? Michael Harris was a two-way guy, exclusively a center fielder. Austin Riley was a two-way guy, and a lot of teams liked him as a pitcher. Atlanta said exclusively a position player, right? Cam Caminiti, two-way guy, was apparently a pretty speedy and decent center fielder, and they said exclusively a pitcher. This is one for Essenberg, two-way guy. Like, he was throwing mid-90s on the mound. He was hitting like 94, and they said, nope, exclusively an outfielder. He's going to be limited to a corner. He's not incredibly fast. He's going to be your prototypical power slugging corner outfielder. But they have him as a top 15 prospect, and they have him as the sleeper prospect, despite the fact he's not played an official game. And then the guy that I have to do a little bit of a mea culpa on here is Diego Torres. He was the second largest IFA bonus in last year's class, $2.5 million coming out of Cuba. For the record, by the way, we're not diving into international free agency today. That opens next Monday. I wrote a whole big piece up on Braves Today on Thursday. The Thursday newsletter was all about international free agency and everything we know about this class that's supposed to start signing next Monday. We'll have a chance to talk to Atlanta's international scouting director next week. Could be Monday, could be Tuesday. We don't know when. So once we talk to him, I'll have clips of that conversation and a recap of the class in a show next week. But if you want to read about those guys and what we know about them now, BravesToday.com, it's in the prospect section there, all about international free agency. But for Diego, 6'2", 178, and they said that the measurements, like the things that he was doing, the things they can measure. He didn't hit a home run in the Dominican Summer League. Didn't hit a single one. But his 90th percentile exit velocity, reminder, I said like 103 is roughly league average. At the age of 17, he was sitting there at 105.4 at the age of 17. Again, he didn't hit a home run, but he's hitting the ball incredibly hard. Per Baseball America, that was the 5th highest 90th percentile exit velocity among all Braves prospects who had 100 or more plate appearances last year. And he's 17 years old in rookie ball. Like, I'm sorry, not even rookie ball, in the Dominican. He wasn't even stateside. He'll be stateside this year. Probably going to be rookie ball at the complex level. But the run times were really good. His arm, they think his arm is, they said it might be, quote, his loudest individual tool. You know, the highest grade there. Both really good strength and really good accuracy. The question here is going to, I guess, two questions really. The baseball question is going to be, can he stay in center field or not, right? Does he keep enough speed and defensive instincts to stay in center, or does he have to move to right or left? Now, having the big arm, he can play right. So, like, that's a thing. You could have a scenario in 4 or 5 years where Essenberg's in one corner and Diego's in the other corner. And you have, you know, Ronald at DH or something if he re-signs, Michael Harris in center field still. Like, that could be your outfield in a couple seasons, in 4 years or whatever. The other thing, just because I said it, there's two. The other thing with any of these guys is you have to look at the physical development, right? They're 6'2", 178. Brian Snitker used to talk about, when Michael Harris first came up, how he didn't yet have his man strength, and he was in his 20s. Diego Torrens was 17 years old. So the question's going to be, physically, as he matures and he puts on weight, does he maintain his athleticism? Does he maintain his speed? And all that stuff. You can be the most heralded international prospect in the world. You can still put on bad weight and lose some of those tools. Jason Dominguez with the New York Yankees was incredibly fast as, you know, a youngster in the DSL and all of that. And as he put on weight, he went from 70 grade run times to average to below average run times. Like, you can absolutely put on bad weight and lose athleticism and lose speed. Question's going to be, what does he do? So that's just anything you get with any drafted play, any young player, period. Whether it's a prep draftee or it's an international free agent. But him being so young and having not yet come stateside, that's an adjustment for some people. He's going to come over as a millionaire, right? Does he still maintain the focus on eating right and all of that stuff? The last thing before we get to our guest is they also talked about a breakout pitching prospect. They had Didier Fuentes. When you look at the actual top 30, he's in here as the number 3 prospect in the system. Cam Kennedy was 1. J.R. Ritchie was 2. Fuentes is 3. And they said, like, yes, the stats were awful. Even his minor league stats weren't great. 7% walk rate, 4.58 ERA. But the actual stuff that he does is really good. The fastball is mid-90s, but his extension, how close to the plate he releases the ball, is really high. And so because of that, the ball literally has less distance to go than if you or I threw it. So it appears to be faster than its velocity. The release height's low. It's a very flat approach angle, meaning every ball goes downhill a little bit going from the mound to the plate because the mound is elevated. You're literally on a mound of dirt. But when he releases the ball lower like he does, that angle to the plate is not as steep. And so because that angle's not as steep, it's harder to get a good read on the ball, and the fastball ends up kind of sometimes overperforming. That's the secret for Hayden Harris. Hayden Harris is throwing 91 miles an hour as a lefty reliever, but it's as close to flat as you can get, and so it works really well with the backspin up in the zone and all that stuff, right? So they're talking about, for Fuentes, it's the command is the issue for him. And if he can kind of get that working, then he's all of a sudden a potential mid-rotation guy. Like, they're really high on his potential because all of his breaking pitches have really good whiff rates. Curveball, a sweeper, a gyro slider, a splitter. He can throw strikes. It's the command. Remember, control is throwing the ball in the strike zone. Command is throwing it where you want to put it. That's what he's got to work on. And so the fastball's got a bunch of outlier characteristics. The breaking balls are all good. And he's still just now 20 miles an hour. Or 20 miles an hour. 20 years old. So he's got room to grow. And he's got room to get even more velocity and get even better. So we'll see what happens. But either way, the farm system just from the last draft and adding those shortstop prospects and adding, combined with some of the development and some of these position players, a Diego Torrance, a John Heel, means that all of a sudden the top of this farm system isn't as hopeless as we thought it was even just a couple years ago. All right. When we come back, I've got a guest here. We're going to talk all about the new Bowman release that comes out next Wednesday. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsey Crosby, joined by my good friend, proprietor of Auburn Cards, Zac Blackerby. Those of you who are both Auburn fans and Braves fans may recognize him from Locked On Auburn as well. Zac, I want to talk about this year's 2025 Bowman draft because a couple Atlanta Braves are in there, including a ton of Tate Southesine. So can you, when's the set come out? Who all is in it? And what should Braves fans be looking for in this?
Yeah. January 14th is the magical day. And of course, Bowman draft is going to be the first time a lot of these early draft picks get their first card, which is super, super exciting. Their first Bowman. Yeah, and you're right. Tate Southesine is all throughout this product. You can tell Bowman, Fanatics, Tops, whoever you want to kind of give credit to, they believe in him, and he's going to be the main Braves chase based on how they've structured this product and structured their sets with a bunch of inserts. He's got pretty much all of them, with the exception of Caminiti's got a certain kind of autograph insert that could be interesting. But the main one, Bowman baseball stuff, it's an autographed heavy product. The autos are what you're chasing. The vast majority of them are on card. So, the athlete touched the card. That's a big thing in the collector space. But one of the larger things, the chases is the case hit that's not an auto, is the etched in glass variation.
Okay.
Panini has a thing, it's called like stained glass. It's their version of it. People really, really like those. It's like there's a stained glass kind of behind the player. But Tate Southesine is the only Braves player that has that kind of variation, that case hit. And so that'll be a card that goes for a lot of money, especially over the next few weeks when the product is still fresh.
Yeah. And to kind of understand the exclusivity there, there's something like 200 players in Bowman draft, but like 20 players got the in-glass variation, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure on the total, but yeah, it's, they only give it to the guys that they think are going to, be the chases of the product. So, and like Southesine, like he's on several of the inserts. Obviously he has autos. They've got, the different color ink, which is fun. The portrait autographs, which is an autograph insert. And then the only dual autograph that you can chase for the Braves is Southesine, and then his brother, which was in the product last year, I think for the Cubs. Lindsey, you may know that better than me.
White Sox, I think, actually. One of the Chicago teams.
Chicago, right? But yeah. So both of those guys having a dual auto would be pretty cool too.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. You're right. It is the Cubs. That's on me.
Hey, how about that? That's a first. Does that surprise you, Lindsey? Southesine, like, what is his path to the majors? How long do you expect him to be in the minors? Talk to me about Southesine here.
Yeah. So, number 22 overall pick last year, he did get a little bit of time in single A, like, 15 games. Performance wasn't anything necessarily to speak of, but he just turned 19. So you're looking at 3 or 4 seasons, probably, most realistically, before he's ready to make a debut. And granted, that could be shortened if he just goes absolutely nuclear. And sometimes young guys do that. But it's not like he's on the verge of the majors. It's going to be a couple years in all but the most optimistic of scenarios. So the fact that he's, one of 20 to get the glass insert, and he's on so many of the variations and parallels and however it's kind of termed there in the hobby,
Yeah.
is to me a sign that either they believe in the obsessive collecting nature of Braves fans, or more likely they believe in the combination of the player's ability to draw with his ability to be a major leaguer one day. And that should make Braves fans feel good who were maybe a little bit concerned about the choice of a Nevada prepster at number 22.
Yeah.
Um, I know in the product, J.R. Ritchie's the only guy who's in the upper minors who's in here, right? It's a lot of last year's drafted guys. You know, Connor Essenberg is in there, the fifth round
Mhm.
outfielder. Caminiti from a few seasons ago, but Briggs McKenzie, the prep lefty out of North Carolina, Cody Miller, the collegiate guy, Alex Lodis, surprisingly, the second round pick, the Florida State shortstop, is not in here, which is a little surprising to me.
Well, J.R. Ritchie being in here is weird. We looked it up before we started. I think his first Bowman's in 2022. So I mean, he has plenty of cards at this point.
Yeah,
But
he's the only
he's
upper
just
levels player for
yeah,
Atlanta
and
in
he's
there.
just in it. Like I don't think he signs in this either. He has his card and he'll have variations and low numbered stuff and all of that.
Yeah,
But you're normally in Bowman with prospect stuff, you're chasing the autos. So I
yeah.
don't, according to the checklist on Beckett's site, he doesn't sign. So it's kind of interesting he's even in this product to begin with.
Could this potentially be something where he's going to debut this year? Like that, the expectation around Braves country is that he'll debut this year, and he's supposed to be, one of the team's better, if not the best pitching prospect. Is it possible that they think, hey, we'll see a bump in value of these cards when he actually hits the majors? Provided he follows the Braves pattern of these prep, sorry, these debuting pitchers, your Spencer Swellenbach, your Hurston Waldrop looking really good. Is it possible that's why he's in there? Is they'll see a bump in value?
Possibly. And there was a product earlier he was in, and it felt like he was, I mean, it seems like the Braves always have a bunch of pitchers that are
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
are, getting, their first appearance in these Bowman products. So I don't know, curious to see how J.R. Ritchie fits into that. Is there any chance, like, who's after J.R. Ritchie of these guys? Who do you think is the first to make their debut of these guys? So Tate Southazine, Briggs McKenzie, Cody
Mhm.
Miller, Cam Caminiti, and then Connor Essenberg. After J.R. Ritchie, who's the next guy up, you think?
For me, I'm gonna say Cody Miller simply because he's the only other of these guys who was a college player. He came out of East Tennessee State in the third round. Debuted last year, made it all the way to high A. He had like 70 plate appearances in high A Rome, and he hit
Okay.
almost 300. So it, it's something where he's kind of one of those. I think the other thing that helps him too is he's kind of a tweener. Like he can play a couple different positions, shortstop, second base, some
Hmm.
outfield and things like that. So he may have a faster path to being some sort of utility guy in the majors sooner rather than later. But he's the only one that's a college guy. Everybody else is a prep. And I actually think, if I remember right, Briggs McKenzie is a younger prep. I want to say he was maybe only 17 when they took him.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so, like, some of these guys, McKenzie hasn't played in official organized games. No, I'm sorry, he was 18 when they took him. Etzenberg hasn't played in official games yet. All
Hmm.
he did was like post draft stuff at the complex, not official games.
Right.
So it's definitely Cody Miller. But even there, I mean, he made it to high A. He'll probably go back to high A to start the year, along with all of Atlanta's other shortstop prospects and Lodis and Gill and all that.
Yeah, I mean, so many of these guys you get in the breaks or maybe you buy the wax yourself, whatever it might be.
Mhm.
And we have a hard time at Auburn Cards, like not a hard time, but if it's not Shohei or a Judge, like the stuff kind of sits unless it's Atlanta players. So I mean, we always stock up on Braves, as you said, the
Mhm.
probably the most passionate MLB fan base out there, especially in this part of the country that we're in.
Yeah.
Obviously. So a lot of the times we just kind of stash up on like I've got so many of the Penn State. It was a Hackenberg.
Drew Hackenberg. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a box with like a bunch of his slabs and his autos. I'm just kind of waiting, sat on a bunch of Hurston Waldrop. And then so much of this depends on like the market is based around when that debut happens, how they do out of the gate. And
Right.
Waldrop did not do well out of the gate. I think he's done better since then. You can correct me if
Yeah.
I'm wrong,
He
but
didn't do
this
well
market will
last
never be the same
year.
after that.
Yeah, he didn't debut well in 24. He was
Right.
really good in 25, but
Yeah, but,
24, his
the
2
way the
appearances were
market
rough.
works off of hype and all that is just it'll never be that high again, so.
Yeah, so it's kind of important when they debut to really hit the ground running in the majors that first time. Okay, that's good to know. Kind of makes you want to, you know, have the team show a little bit of patience. I think something that the
Yeah.
Braves have done a lot of recently, and I have something coming up soon on the newsletter about it, is how they've popped pitcher options very early. Like they've pushed guys to the majors quickly, and it's worked out sometimes. But Spencer Schwalbenbach was great, and I'm sure his
Yeah.
cards value,
This
his
stuff's
value.
expensive. I think it's more expensive than it should be, if I'm being honest
Yeah.
with you. Yeah.
Like it corresponded. Well, I also think he could be, if he's fully healthy for a year, I think he could be a Cy Young contender. Like I
I
think
think
that's
his
how good
stuff's
he
higher
is.
though than like Strider.
Oh wow. Well, okay. See, okay, that's another question I have. Does if a player gets hurt, misses time, and maybe doesn't look the same when they come back, does that typically hurt the value a little bit, or is at that
Yeah,
point in their
and look, the
career,
hobby
is it kind of
doesn't like
baked?
pitchers. The hobby, as a
Yeah.
general rule, does not like pitchers as much as position guys, hitters. I think there's
Yeah.
a few reasons for that. One, you see the hitters every night.
Yep.
You see highlights of the home runs. You don't necessarily see highlights of a 3 strikeout inning in the seventh or whatever that might be. You almost got to go
I
towards
see
the
those, but I'm
yeah,
looking for
you
those.
you
Yeah.
see them, and if you subscribe to Braves Today, you definitely see the deep dive into why this cutter or splitter was perfect, written by the goat Lindsey Crosby. But as a general rule, like
Yeah.
thinking big picture of the hobby, they like the hitters a lot more, and some of that has to do with health and availability. I mean, the much contested and discussed strain on the shoulder and guys missing time. So
Mhm.
that's part of it too. That's part of it too in talking about pitchers. Unless you're Paul Skeens, um, the hobby does not like pitchers as much.
I can see that. It just out of curiosity, before I get you out of here, is there a Braves player that, like, I guess outside of Ronald Acuna Jr., and you mentioned Schwellenbach, that either has a surprisingly low or a surprisingly high value and demand in the market?
We can't keep an Aussie.
Really?
No
Can't keep an
Aussie.
Aussie in stock.
Yeah, if we have an Aussie, if we buy an Aussie at a show, it's gone within an hour.
Wow. Okay.
Um, Austin Riley, I think, is too cheap. Um,
Kind of
and
buying the
then
dip
I
from maybe
used to
being
have a
hurt the
bunch of
last 2
Michael
years.
Harris's. I'm afraid to buy him now because of that slump he had in the first half. It was a last year,
Yeah.
and then
First
like at
half
the
last
All-Star
year.
break, he like transformed to his old self. But I haven't seen a lot of Michael Harris stuff lately, but he used to be the hot rookie and the guy to buy. So that's kind of shifted. But yeah, I mean, I think as far as like higher end versions of some of these guys, like I think Austin Riley's probably a little undervalued.
So if Braves fans who are in the hobby and want to try to grab something that's going to be in more demand later, there's a possibility like the pricing's there on an Austin Riley if he rebounds. Fun fact: if you want to know more about his slump and what happened last Thursday here on the show, we talked about
Yes.
Austin Riley, his odds of rebounding, how he did as far as like why did he slump? Was it injuries? Was it the extension? What happened? So it's in your podcast feed from Thursday the 8th. Go check that
There you
out.
go.
Um, Zach, where can folks follow your Auburn Cards content, you in general, and just get everything about what you do?
Yeah, all the card stuff is at auburn.cards on Instagram. We're also on YouTube, posting primarily shorts and stuff. But if you're on Instagram and are interested in certain cards or whatever, you can DM us. We do a lot of business that way. And then, as Lindsay said, I cover Auburn full time. So check me out if you care. Locked on Auburn, wherever you get your podcasts.
That'll do it for today's episode of Braves Today. If you're listening on audio, do me a favor. 5-star review would be fantastic. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when we go live, we drop a short for the next episode. And as always, bravestoday.com. Those subscriptions help us out a ton. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.